Joe, great news.
What?
Justin Pedroia is retiring after not playing at all the last 3 years.
Can Jacoby Ellsbury retire too?
No, I think he's still trying to haggle for money from the Yankees.
Well, we don't care about Red Sox people,
No.
so.
Anyway,
Um,
yeah, it's snowing really bad outside as we record this. I think
yeah, we've
this.
got like what 15 inches or something.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
crazy.
I'm in the 18 to 24 inch range. It's already for the last 5 hours. We tried shoveling earlier, and it's just too windy out there.
We've
It's
got the
too
plow going
dangerous.
by my house now.
Yeah. Well, you're also about 100 feet lower in elevation than I am, and a few
Yeah.
miles to the east. So you're much better. But it's looking finally a cold winter. And you know what's also a cold winter right now? And that's Denver, Colorado.
Yeah.
Denver, the window has uh, been signaled to be slammed shut from the last couple of years of Rocktober.
Yep.
After the rotation went belly up, they made some bad moves in who to keep, who to let go, and DJ LeMahieu,
Adam
and
Ottavino.
yeah, Ottavino, and it's looking like now the last big domino is falling. As on Friday night, as you and I were playing games with friends,
Yes.
uh, news broke that the Cardinals are have agreed to a big trade to get Nolan Arenado from the Rockies. The details of which are rather intriguing, and the best I can compare it to is 2003 when the Red Sox tried to acquire Alex Rodriguez. Because if
Mm-hmm.
you remember back then, that the idea was that they would send Manny Ramirez to the Rangers, prospects and a couple prospects, but A-Rod would restructure his contract so that it would be a lesser salary hit on the Red Sox, and ultimately the union said no to that. Now what's happening? Similar thing. Rockies getting the three prospects. They're sending 50 million to to the Cardinals. Plus, Arenado is restructuring the remainder of his 7-year, $234 million extension that he signed in 2019. Which, in addition to his opt out after next year, he would get an additional opt out after 2022 and would keep his full no trade clause and would get another guaranteed year on his contract for about $15 million. So
Yeah.
the deal is pending league and union approval. So what do you think? Does this have a better shot at clearing both hurdles than the A-Rod to the Red Sox did back in the day?
Uh,
Or is
I
this dead
mean,
on arrival?
I mean, there's so much going on this past like 12 calendar months, so who knows what's gonna happen at this point. um, I'm gonna say yeah, it'll be fine. They'll figure something out. Because everyone's being a diva these days, and Arenado's gonna find a way out one way or another. And if the Cardinals really want to take someone else from the West again, like they did Goldschmidt from the D-backs, uh, and make that a really good two corners in the infield, they're gonna do that. They're gonna solidify that lineup. As they have not been the Cardinals we had known for the mid 2000s and most of the 2010s.
No,
Uh,
yeah, those Cardinals were known for building from within, and this is a team
yeah,
that's wheeling and dealing. The bigger thing is that the Rockies aren't getting any of their top 100 prospects for this. That
yeah. I think this was
detailed
more just like a salary dump, and I don't
well,
know.
it's the problem of the Rockies had zero leverage. One, because of the opt-out next year, but two, because there's since the end of 2019 there has been a public feud uh, between Arenado and the the GM for the Rockies, who after the Rockies floundered in 2019, and then going into 2020 they had one player signed to a major league contract when their rotation was a mess. They had some problems in with the lineup construction, and by the end of 2020, he was basically demanding a trade, or as much as you could demand a trade in Major League Baseball. It's not like the NFL or NBA where you can just say I'm not playing. You have to trade me, and the team's like, okay. But this
I mean, they
is
still have what Trevor Story though, the Rockies. So
yeah,
and Blackman, but
but Blackman's starting to become a contract albatross on the team. Plus,
yeah,
they also have there are also the other the two-headed problems of one. The Arenado's and Story were kind of their one-two punch. Now they're missing half of their lineup. Granted, the Rockies have for the last 15 years, I'd say, starting with Troy Tulowitzki and Matt Holliday, have been able to churn out a huge amount of talented position players. But two, the bigger problem is look at that division. You have the Dodgers who just won the World Series. You have the Padres who are looking like they're challenging the Dodgers for supremacy. The Giants are saying that their rebuild's just going to be a short one. And then who knows what the Diamondbacks do? Whenever you think they're going to rebuild, they have a random season where they win 88 games.
yeah. Oh, and also with the Rockies, Daniel Murphy retired as well.
Yeah.
So they're losing that bat in the lineup
Yeah, although
as well. Not that he was doing too much after he really left Washington.
Yeah, so right now the Rockies look like obviously Trevor Story's still there, but he's also a free agent after this season, so only one more year there. Ryan McMahon, a lot of pop, no offense last year, but again, 2020, it's hard to really tell for some of these players. They have Blackman, who's doing well, but he's going to be 34 this year. And after that, they have Ramil Tapia. They have Brendan Rodgers. But the bigger problem is that rotation. They have Marquez, Senzatella, and hopefully a resurgent Freeland. But it goes very much south in there. They're still reeling from several bad bullpen signings the last couple of seasons.
Yeah, well, I mean, their pitching really hasn't been good this last 15 years anyway. It always seems to have been that's what was causing them from getting that World Series. They always had a good lineup, as you said. They kept always finding some really good talent, and then things were just not clicking on the pitching side of things. And pitching wins you a championship.
Yeah, I mean,
lack of pitching loses you a championship if you're the Mets.
I mean, look at the last 2 years, 2017 and 2018. The last two great Rockies teams. They had Marquez, they had Freeland pitching at peak performance. They remember 2018. Freeland had that tremendous season where he pitched to a 2.85 ERA, which is something very rarely done in Colorado.
Yeah.
But Marquez, a strikeout machine. But think back to 2007, 2009, the first instance of Rocktober that you had Ubaldo Jimenez, you had
oh yeah, remember that run?
oh yeah,
he was 18-0 with a 1.2 ERA or something at one point.
Yeah,
crazy.
Yeah, you also had Jorge De La Rosa, Jason Marquis. They had good seasons. Then you look at the season where they're bad. Just gonna pick a random season. After 2009, they were 92 and 10. Just the next 2 years after 2011, 73 and 85, and they had Joyce Chacin, the only pitcher in the starting rotation with an ERA south of 4. And so it's Rockies always live and die from that pitching. They're always going to be a lineup that you have to you have trouble navigating, but it's also works both ways. That the mile high air is a fickle thing, even with the humidors.
Wasn't there a thing they had A-Rod go on the Rockies?
Oh yeah.
You're what did he clobber? 1,000 home runs or something?
Yeah, but he only won one World Series because he accounted for 50% of the payroll.
Yeah.
And he had they had half the season they didn't win more than 65 games because it was A-Rod and that was it. And it was so bad that because it was a simulation of what he'd do if he played his entire career in Colorado every like every week the team would try to trade A-Rod to someone, and then the person running the simulation would have to manually trade redo the trade so that A-Rod would be set back in Colorado. That's not the only baseball news going on right now that's important. If you remember last week, we were talking that the union was given a proposal by
Mm-hmm.
Major League Baseball to postpone the season because of the uh, coronavirus pandemic going on, and the league said the league was given a letter from the union saying stuff it, and it also but we also came out at the time that the Arizona the Cactus League in Arizona
Mm-hmm.
had sent a letter saying we do not think we can do spring training on time, and we thought at the time, saying a little tinfoilish,
Mm-hmm.
that maybe they were playing ball for the commissioner's office, saying that with that because the uh, the league want and the owners want to wait a bit while the players don't saying that they want to play. So if the one of the two spring training sites says we can't do it, that could bring the players to the table. As I said, we thought it was tinfoilish, and it turns
Yep.
out it wasn't. That
Mm-hmm.
there were some communications between the league and the Cactus League about this issue. They didn't leak. Strangely, if I can't find what those exact communications were, considering all the other dirty laundry being aired at the moment. But it's interesting to see that. Now, just yesterday on the 31st, on the 30th, but it kept evolving. That a second proposal was issued by Major League Baseball, that there would be a 1 month delay, and then they would start a 154 game season. Notably, they would still get 162 days of games of pay for a 154 game season that would start in May. There would be expanded playoffs. There would be DH, and the World Series would most likely happen around Thanksgiving weekend, which is something that Fox Sports has very much been outspoken about not doing. As expected, the union does not like expanded playoffs, and per John Heyman, that he says that the proposal has players and the union worrying about the commissioner having too much control over when games can get canceled, how they get rescheduled, how all that is. And he even says a counter proposal from the union is actually a question. Now, I was listening a bit to the Michael Kay show earlier today.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Obviously, he had opinions, and he brought up a great point, which I want to say. Why is all of this being leaked by the league and the owners? Because we know that's where they're coming from. We know from the entire year since the work stoppage in last March and the negotiations to try to get back,
Mm-hmm.
that the owners have been leaking out all these negotiation deals in an attempt to side public opinion with them. All this is doing is just dragging everyone down with it, just dragging down the integrity of the owners, the integrity of the players, the integrity of baseball itself, just so that everyone can say we got a big win on the other side. Why does this have to be aired as it is in this sort of public opinion instead of in the back room, which is how it usually is, where it doesn't make front page news?
Yeah. I don't know. The only thing I can think of is that they want some attention to just bring it to baseball and take it away from the NBA and the NFL. Um,
Yeah, but this isn't a situation where you
but
say
this,
good news. Any news is good
yeah,
news.
no, but that's just sort of uh, I think how Manfred's sort of running things. It's obviously not a good thing because then we're really only getting one side of things, and it's only like partial information too. It's not like they're like, all right, here's a big PDF with all 757 pages of it. Everyone can go read it and take your bits and pieces. Um, it's I don't know. I'm not a fan of what I'm seeing here. I understand the 154 games compared to the 162. I know there's been talk about that in years past of changing things. Um, the 154, I guess, makes sense where it's sort of like built in uh, canceled games, if you want to think of it that way. But extending everything all the way through November, I don't think so. That gets too cold. Pitchers' arms are going to be really stiff.
Well,
Um,
not that we know anything of the report, but it probably would be like last year where they would hold the playoffs in neutral warm sites.
yeah, yeah, they would have to do that at
Yeah.
that point. Because you don't want to like have a game in November, and hopefully it's not in Boston, but like in Boston and like Milwaukee, that would be awful.
Yeah.
Like,
Or worse, Minnesota versus Colorado.
yeah.
Not that Colorado, as we said, not that Colorado's getting anywhere close to the playoffs, but still,
No.
think of
Well,
even just
although it would make for a good slugfest, that thin air up in the mountains.
there'd
Oof,
be a
that
nice
ball would
snow.
just fly
Oh
off.
yeah, yeah. But also, it should be noted that a lot of the reason we have bad blood right now is because of the 2016 negotiations, where the
Mm-hmm.
players' union they had just had a leadership change and they gave the farm away. They gave a lot of the concessions, and the players realized they got played by the league. So that started all the bad blood of saying we got to get some of that leverage back.
Yep.
And with what they're saying at the moment is that all this talk and all this standoffish of right now is not boding well in terms of negotiations for the next collective bargaining agreement after the season is over.
Yep.
That the canary in the coal mine is this right now that it's looking more and more certain that there will be a work stoppage and a lockout for the 2022 season.
Now, what my biggest problem is, I've seen this floating around, and I don't know exactly what all the backdoor politics and everything are. But when did the World Series end this year? November, right?
It ended on time in October.
The end of October.
Yeah,
So
the
they've
late.
had
Yeah.
November, December, and now all of January. 3 months they've had, as it's February 1st as of recording, um, to figure some things out for like some schedules, and it feels like they haven't done anything. Uh, like 3 months is a lot of time to figure things out. Like I know there's 30 teams to go around and do things and figure out who plays this, who plays where. Um, but like that's 3 whole months. There's a lot of like I'm gonna be not very politically correct. There's a lot of nerds out there. Uh, they should be able to calculate this stuff in like a week's time. I think two
Yeah.
weeks tops. There's lots of people out there. I'm sure if you like let Twitter handle it, uh, handle. Um,
If
so
you let
you
Tr-
just let Twitter handle it, they'd probably figure it out in like a weekend.
well, it's the problem of it's not just as simple as that.
No,
Remember,
I know it's not that simple,
yeah.
but like, at least like have something out there, and if you're gonna leak things, don't leak stupid things like what we have now.
Well, it's
Um,
as we said
I
last
don't,
time. It's that it's they have something out there. It's called the current collective bargaining agreement. That there is zero obligation for the players' union to have to go out and negotiate, because the league can go say whatever it wants and do whatever it wants. But at the end of the day, the players can say no. We're holding you to the letter of the 2016 agreement, and we're starting spring training on time on the 27th of February, and the season will start on April 1st. That is everything within their right, and that is the one thing that the league did not have any leverage of. And as we said last time, it also doesn't give the league any help that the Arizona Coyotes, the Phoenix Suns, and the Tampa Bay Lightning, and also the NFL with the Super Bowl are all playing in the spring training areas, and many of them with fans. And
Yeah.
that saying that if baseball says we have to wait until we get our vaccine, but these guys can play perfectly fine, that is a argument that you really do not want to get into when a lot of the talk right now is who's getting it earlier than they should and how dare they. And that's a talk for a different podcast. But
I mean, sorry, letter Kenny. To be fair, uh, baseball isn't as much contact as those other sports,
unless you're a
um,
catcher,
unless if you're a catcher. Um, but that being said, uh, baseball should be fine as long as no one's going to like casinos and other stupid things. I mean,
if
is
we had
everything going to be perfect? No. I mean, when we had the bubbles for the NHL and the NBA, no one got sick. But as we've resumed for this current season, we've seen cases go up and up. I mean, the Devils have their next 3 games postponed in the NHL. I think the Kings had something as well.
we had the
Vegas postponed 2 more games. Uh, there's 10 guys on the Devils with COVID. Um, the Capitals had a bit of an incident with like 4 of the players. Ovechkin came back and scored an overtime goal in his first game back.
we had the Pelicans
Yeah,
game where they couldn't play because neither team had enough players that
yeah,
weren't caught in contact tracing to fill a starting 11.
yep. The Celtics had lost Jason Tatum for like 2.5 weeks, which was really rough. They lost some like pretty bad games, blowing some games that they had massive leads in, which we can get into later
Yeah,
when we talk more about the
but
NBA.
yeah, but
But
not
it's the MLB. Uh, I don't know. It,
knock on wood. None of the 4 pro sports has lost an active player due to COVID.
yeah,
We had the big scare with Freddie
Freddie
Freeman,
Freeman.
uh, who then went on to win MVP.
Props to him.
Yeah, and we also have Eduardo Rodriguez of the Red Sox, who we're still waiting to see if his complications from COVID-19, which kept him out of 2020, will impact him this season. There's
Well, I
going
mean, we had Corey Crawford of the Chicago Blackhawks. He retired. He had COVID and he just could not play.
yeah,
He
yeah,
was like, I'm done.
but
Uh,
no one
Died.
has died from this, which is
Yeah.
honestly, considering how we're approaching in this
Yeah.
country, 500,000 people dead and how many millions have gotten sick is a godsend.
Yeah. It's
So,
over 10% of the population.
but as we said, this is going to be an ongoing story for the next couple of months. So we'll get to that. Some other quick news: the infield market for teams has shrunken dramatically. Andrelton Simmons has signed with the Twins. Didi Gregorius went back to the
Phillies.
Phillies. The Blue Jays got Marcus Simeon, uh,
Yes. Blue
which
Jays
is
are looking pretty good and pretty
yeah,
scary, I might say.
yeah.
Let me look at their depth chart real quick. They picked up Steven Matz from the Mets. They got Robbie Ray and Ross Stripling anchoring that back of that bullpen.
And then
Um,
they got George Springer manning
yep,
center field,
yep.
Simeon
Um,
and at second. That the Rays are going with having shrink back payroll are going to be a little hard pressed to repeat as number 1 or number 2 with
yeah,
both the Yankees, who are built for the long haul and should be fine this year.
yeah, yeah. Like
And
I think if Robbie Ray can find that magic he had for a good like couple years, couple years back, I think he could be a good fifth guy there. Mats, I liked him on the Mets. Was he the best pitcher? No, but I think he had some like decent stuff.
But we
Um,
can't we can no longer meet the Mets. Come on out and meet the Mets. Yeah, okay.
um,
Other big news we were talking about with the Yankees signing Kluber and trading for Tyone. Where would
Masahiro
Masahiro
Tanaka
Tanaka
go?
go? We said the Padres had kicked the tires, but there's nothing else. Well, it turns out he's going home. He
He's
signs it.
playing for the Eagles.
Yeah, he's gone back to his old team on a 2-year deal. So at the moment, this puts an end to his major league career. But at his press conference, he did not close the door on returning to.
Because he's only like what 32.
Yeah, this will be his age
Um,
32 season.
yeah, so that still gives him coming back at age 34. We've seen pitchers pitch at age 34 for another couple of years. I mean, he still has a lot of mileage on his arm. He threw a lot in Japan early on.
And he's
Um,
plus the last 7
yeah,
years.
with the Yankees.
Interestingly, he also hasn't closed the door on returning to the Yankees, even as soon as 2021, which leads everyone to speculate that his 2-year deal has an opt out after this season. So potentially, if things in the
Yeah.
rotation go south, Kluber is a bust, and there's some problems with the younger players, that maybe they circle
Mm,
back once that luxury tax is reset for the Yankees. And
yeah. I
and
mean, maybe
and
his logic is I don't know if MLB is going to get their stuff together. Uh, So let me go to Japan where I know I can definitely pitch, keep my conditioning up,
and that
make
he
some money,
yeah
definitely play, and
yeah
then
oh definitely play. There's hardly a stadium there that doesn't have a dome, so
yeah,
they can and will play through December.
yeah. So uh, I think this is a smart move for Tanaka.
Yeah,
I know he loves New York.
yeah.
Uh,
You know
so
who this does kill? This killed a lot of teams that could have used it. The aforementioned Blue Jays, the Angels, the
and I will
Mets.
say I'm surprised his UCL's held up after all this time.
Well, it's
Like
not the first time. Uh, what's his name? The former Angels pitcher that start uh, starts with an E. That, but he pitched, I think, his entire career with a partially torn UCL. I'm gonna look that up right now.
um, But yeah, I mean, he was a workhorse. Yeah, he had his share of some injuries and whatnot, but for the most part, the only thing I have to say is we didn't get him that World Series.
No, and
We came close, but no cigars.
blame the Astros both times.
Blame Canada.
Oh, blame. Uh, but yeah, that guy. Let's see. He was on the 2018. He was on the Twins for a couple of years as well. Blah, 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 yada yada yada. But yeah, and uh, but yeah, hopefully that Tanaka comes back in a few years. He's definitely one of the most reliable pitchers
Yep.
in thing, and hopefully he comes back to the Yankees. Also, that pitcher's name was Irvin Santana. I don't know why I
Oh
forgot that.
yeah.
Yeah, he's another one of those guys that pitched his entire career with a partially torn UCL. But
Mm,
anyway, we spent enough time on
yep. So let's talk a
baseball.
little bit about some NHL. Um, I guess we sort of talked about some games have been postponed. The Devils' next 3 games. Vegas postpones 2 more games. Uh, Alex Ovechkin and Sidney Crosby both moved up on the all-time lists for overtime game winner goals. Um, it's been, I guess, an interesting NHL season so far. Looking at the standings, we got the Panthers, Blue Jackets tied up the top of the Central with 11 points. The Capitals and the Flyers with 15 points in the East. We got the Maple Leafs in first with 15 points in the North, and the Blues and Avalanche with 13 points in the West, leading things. One team, I mean, I'm a Rangers fan, but they've had 2 overtime losses. But I think a lot of their games, they were blown out in the first game 4-0 against the Islanders, and they beat them 5-0. and then they had one, two, three, four straight losses by one goal. Um, Actually, all their losses, other than the first game against the Islanders, have been by one goal, uh, and their lone win, other than their 5-0 win over the Islanders, was also a one-goal game. And basically, every game that they've lost, they've basically held a lead in the game, especially going into the third period, and they've blown it every time, basically.
So
And it's
what
frustrating.
you're saying is that they are the NHL version of the Atlanta Hawks or the Los Angeles Chargers.
Basically. And the Celtics have been doing that as well for the NBA, if you're mentioning the Hawks. Uh, I was going through the Celtics schedule, and other than like the one game they were blown out by the Nets and then by the Knicks, uh, they should have won all of those other games. They lost to the Pacers by 1 point. They lost by three to the Pistons after blowing a huge lead. They blew big leads to the Sixers in back-to-back games. They lost to the Spurs after blowing it again, and a wild thing with the Lakers, and they blew that as well. Um,
Yeah.
Otherwise, the Celtics should be sitting basically at the top of the leaderboard. But like I said, they were missing Jason Tatum for a while. Kemba Walker was missing. I think they've had their starting five out like once, maybe twice out of these like first like 15 games, however many they played.
Mm.
But back to the Rangers though, um, there is a very specific player, Tony DeAngelo.
I was
Uh,
waiting for you to get into this.
I'm pretty mad. As you know, I've told you before and also on the channel, I can't pick favorite players. Tony DeAngelo is not one of my favorite players. Um, One of my favorite players the last couple of years for the New York Rangers was Jesper Fast. He's now with the Carolina Hurricanes, and basically the Rangers didn't re-sign him because they didn't have enough cap space, and they basically gave money to DeAngelo instead, who had a really fantastic last couple of years. Uh, but he's also had a big history of being a big jerk.
Oh yeah.
Um, he's had some stuff in the OHL for homophobic, racist, and sexist language, breaking that policy,
Which was also
abusing
the second.
officials.
Which also that harassment thing was also the second time he had been suspended for that.
Yeah. So he's been abusive to officials in the minors, and also when he was playing for the Coyotes. Um, it, he's just been he was part of what was it Parlor. He was speaking out about that, being a part of that. So big headache on that. And he was part of the Rangers, the package that they sent with Arizona, where they got Elias Anderson, who, for whatever reason, didn't like the Rangers and refused to play. They get rid of Derek Stepan and Anita Ranta as well. Stepan was also one of my favorite players with the Rangers, and Ranta was a very good backup goalie for the Rangers for Lundqvist. Um, so Rangers lost a lot out of this. I think the only thing that they got Zibanejad out of that, which he's blossomed into possibly I think the next team captain or one of them. So that's a positive out of that. But like this has just been a real head scratcher. He was put on waivers Sunday. Nobody claimed him. The other 30 NHL teams. And the Rangers, according to General Manager Jeff Gorton, he's played his last game. He will not play anymore. He's done. They're not. They're gonna try to not cut him and try and find a trade package. Because I guess they don't want to eat his $9 million.
Who wouldn't,
Um,
especially in this economy?
yeah. So this is frustrating. I mean, it wasn't even like he was having a good year, and it could be like, all right, let's try and put up with it. Like he's just has not had a very good year. He had an altercation with goalie Alexander Georgiev after a 5-4 loss to the Penguins and overtime. which is another game that they blew. Um, so
It's just a
it's just
mess.
yeah, he's a big problem, and I don't know if the Rangers are going to be able to trade him.
I
I'm sure someone will do something, but you're probably not going to get much back for him, especially with that 2-year, $9 million hit.
I
Uh,
honestly think with all that baggage, he's just going to be. No one's going to want to take a risk at him.
yeah,
If you remember back in the day, baseball player named Milton Bradley, who was just a complete. He was a
not the
complete.
board game people, right?
Well, he was named after the board game
Hmm.
people, but he was a complete nasty player, a prima donna and lazy head cases for him, and he bounced around a lot of people as a result of that because they liked his talent, but then when he never panned out, um, they're like, we can't deal with him. His career started with the Expos and traded to Cleveland. Cleveland in the big in a was it in the big fleecing? No, it was a different. It was a different trade. But then he traded to the Dodgers, traded to the Athletics, traded to San Diego, Texas, Chicago, finally
Slam Diego.
Seattle. No, this was well
I
before Slam Diego.
know.
But yeah, he was always had that talent, had an all star for the Rangers, but it never came together, and no one would put up with him. And finally, with Chicago and Seattle, the bat finally fell apart, and that was it. Done at 33, no one wanted him. No one wanted to deal with him. Just a got if I remember, get into a he got into a couple fights, and actually, uh, 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 also was finally put away in 2013 for 32 months for threatening and assaulting his wife. So that tells you the pedigree of him.
Yeah. But so just like looking at the NHL standings, it's obviously still all up for grabs. Um, these divisions are tight. Like I said, the Rangers have all their losses, other than that opening night, have been by one goal. Um, so that's just hopefully just a string of bad luck, and that they can figure out how to close out a game. Um,
Well, they have to do it quick. They're 2-4-2 and 2-4 with two overtime loss.
yep.
2-4-2. I think that's how it's done in.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Ahead,
So
well, far behind the 6-0-3 that the division leading Capitals are. Plus, you have the 7-2-1 Flyers that they have several teams. And the Rangers have to climb over everything.
yeah.
And
Well, what
that's
makes it hard though is it's the top four seeds in each division, I believe, make it. So
yeah.
they've got a lot. I mean, it's not a lot of ground to cover. They're five, 1, 2, 3, 4. Pittsburgh's sitting at 11 points. That's 5 points of a difference. But you got to go through the Capitals and the Bruins as well.
And you have
Yeah.
the Islanders who
And
are
yeah, the Islanders who are not doing well right now,
yeah
but they should rebound.
yeah
Uh,
they're on a 5 game losing streak. They'll recover.
yeah, so this is going to be a real tight East. The Central looks pretty tight as well and congested. Um,
The West is jammed up at the top right now,
yeah, it's
and the North. All we can say is, hey, the Maple Leafs and the Canadians are 1-2.
yeah.
Not very few years you can say that.
No, yeah. It's pretty hard to do that, but yeah. So I'd say I'm looking forward to the rest of hockey, but
It's going to be a
cable
long.
likes to be expensive, so I don't get to really watch hockey this year.
It's going to be a long
Um,
season for you
yeah.
probably anyway. So
Which I'm not even really gonna get to watch baseball either, because Yes Network is like only like specifically on Dish and I guess regular like actual cable itself, which is really annoying. And, you can't get MLB Network because there's things as blackouts,
yep.
and it's really annoying. Um, like big TV's got to go away. They're jerks.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, but
but I guess for the NBA, we've got a few things going on. As I said, the Celtics had been missing a bunch of players and losing games that they shouldn't be losing. Just lost Marcus Smart for the next month with a calf injury, which is really tough. Um, Embiid seems to be, Joel Embiid from the 76ers seems to be looking to be an MVP front runner. Um, so we've got that going on. 76ers at 15-6, leading the East. The Clippers at 16-5, leading the West, only a half game ahead of the Utah Jazz.
yep. But yeah, the Jazz
So
were then a half game ahead of the
yeah,
Lakers.
they had went on, I believe, an 11-game winning streak
Yeah. Mean,
to get
yeah,
there.
yeah.
So
Meanwhile, the Nets are number 2 in the East, followed by the
yeah,
Bucks.
after having a really rocky first like 6 or so games,
Yeah,
they've really come out of their shell.
yeah. But now that they've gone 7-3 in their last 10
Yeah,
games.
the Washington Wizards, oof.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Um,
it's everyone's game unless you're the Washington Wizards, the Detroit Pistons, or the Minnesota
oof.
Timberwolves.
What what's awful though is they have Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal, and Beal's dropping like 40-point games like there's no tomorrow, and Russell Westbrook's almost averaging a triple double again, which most of that's point padding or stat padding. Um,
Well, it has to
but
be
still,
considering the team.
yeah. Well, I mean, he did that in Oklahoma too, but I guess again considering the team. But those two guys are there, and it's like I guess they're like not playing defense at all, because like there's no way you should be like dropping 40 points in like 5 straight games and just not getting a W in any of those. It's uh, it's really sad, and it's obviously frustrating. I think Beal was seen crying on the bench because, like, I mean, I would too. Like, that's
Yeah.
really frustrating. You're putting your heart and soul out there, and your team can't do any defense, which the Nets need to figure out their defense if they want to win the championship. Because you could, if you ever watch an NBA All Star game, it's like always like 160 to like 155. There's no defense, which actually they're in talks for the All Star game. It's how the NBA is working, if you remember. They're only doing half the season, and then they get to the All Star break, and then they'll figure it out like
Right.
later. So they might be doing the dunk contest and the 3-point contest at the All Star break. That's now up for talks. So we'll see if that'll be a thing in the coming weeks.
Have they said
Yeah.
anything about where it's going to be? I know when we talked about it last week that said it could be in the Atlanta
Mm-hmm.
arena, or at one of the historically black colleges because social justice, and they want to to leverage the players' union on that.
I'm not. I don't think it
Doesn't
has it
I haven't
yet.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything new this week
Yeah.
about it. So I guess to
Yeah,
be
just saying
determined.
Atlanta being considered, but nothing set in stone
Yeah.
yet.
Which is also another thing. Speaking of All Star games, this year I believe it's the Dodgers are supposed to have the All Star game, or regardless, MLB is still supposed to have their All Star game in July. I don't see that happening realistically, at least in its usual format, unless things get really better really quickly.
Yeah.
But that's just a quick aside. Is it time to talk about the superb owl yet?
Well, yeah, well, we'll get into that in a sec. We mentioned the All Star game for the NBA. I guess we should talk about the Pro Bowl for the NFL first.
We actually
Uh,
had to have news on that thing. I thought it was going away.
uh, well, it was done virtual on Madden. Marshawn Lynch got an interception playing and broke his chair in the process.
Oh God!
If you haven't seen that clip, I highly recommend that. It's hilarious.
Oh God!
Final score of the game was 32-12 from the NFC. Um, and we had Marshawn Lynch, who's currently not playing, but he was still allowed to play. NASCAR driver Bubba Wallace, uh, and a former, I don't know where he is, somebody, he's a former NFL player. He also played in, Snoop Dogg also got to play a quarter as well. Um, so, I don't know. This is a big joke. Hopefully, this never happens again, and hopefully, the NFL Pro Bowl never happens again, even when COVID's done, because it's a joke. It's worse than the NBA All Star game.
Mm.
At least with that, you can see a bunch of cool slam dunks and crazy shots and whatnot. But the Pro Bowl, it's like, who cares? It's the end of the season. Doesn't mean anything. It's not even in Hawaii anymore. So like they don't even do like a. They always do like the combine for like the college kids coming to the pros. Like, why not have a combine for the NFL players at the Pro Bowl? See who's the fastest guy, throw the farthest, kick the most field goals, moving backwards like 5 yards each time. But you know the NFL doesn't do that. But what they do is have Tom Brady in the Super Bowl again. That is the NFL's thing past 21 years now. And oh boy, is this going to be an interesting one. We talked about it last week that the Tampa Bay is hosting it, and Tampa Bay is in it, and they are the designated home team. So, do you have any thoughts on this? Brady versus Mahomes, the current GOAT versus the possible next GOAT.
It's certainly going to be a clash of the Titans, the the most dominant team of the last 2 years versus versus the man, the myth, the legend, Tom Brady. It's old, as we said. It's the old quarterback, the old super quarterback versus the new breed of do everything quarterbacks.
Yep. And Brady says he's going to consider playing past 45, so we'll have to see on that. Now, both head coaches coming in do have Super Bowl experience. Andy Reid obviously winning last year with the Chiefs and being there with the Eagles years ago. But then we also have Bruce Arians, who is not one as a head coach, but he did win 2 Super Bowls as an assistant coach, I believe a wide receiver coach, with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So he does have his rings, but he'll see if he can add one as a head coach. And Bruce Arians has his motto, no risk it, no biscuit. So expect to see Tampa Bay go out there and do everything they can to try and win. Mahomes has said it that him and Brady are the same, where they don't care if they throw for 400 yards or 100 yards. They just both want to win the game. And we've seen that by both quarterbacks. Where I'm like, why does Mahomes only have like 150 yards today? It's like, well, the running game was going well, so Mahomes handed off. Same thing with Brady. They're both can easily take over an offense and do their own things, but they both can recognize when they're not having as good of a game, or if someone else is just having a better game, and they'll let them take over. So hopefully this is an interesting Super Bowl, because the ones Brady have been in, they're not even like really like that dominant of a win. They've been like fairly close and like decided in like the last minute or so. We saw that with like the Giants, both those Super Bowls. There's that really boring one against the Rams a couple of years ago. That was a snooze fest.
There was the Patriots Seahawks or Patriots.
Yep. There was the interception at the end where they should have given it to Lynch and let him go into beast mode and score from like 2 yards out, but no.
But Brady's never won for the is usually not one where Super Bowls shy away from the down to the wire.
Yeah. So, I
So,
guess we'll expect it to be down to the wire.
but which way is that wire gonna go? Who do you think's gonna come out? The Chiefs or the Patriots? The Buccaneers. I'm so used to Brady being
Yeah.
on the Patriots.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I'm kind of torn. Um, I like Andy Reid. I like Bruce Arians, both as head coaches. They're two of my favorites. I like to see both of them win. I'd like to see Reid get back-to-back wins. That'd be really good. Another Super Bowl win for Mahomes might cement him as the best quarterback in the league officially. I'd take him over Aaron Rodgers then, despite Aaron Rodgers' MVP season. Um, which apparently the Green Bay Packers seem keen on him coming back next year. They say he's their guy, but who knows?
Well,
Um,
I was reading that that the before the Matthew Stafford trade that that happened, that the target for the Rams was actually Aaron Rodgers. That
yeah,
they made a run, and then the Packers insisted they have no plans.
yeah.
So well, we have
I
that to
want to
go
talk
with.
about that Stafford trade real quick, but I don't know. I think I'm going to go with the Chiefs, but I'm so bad at picking NFL playoff games for whatever reason. So
And
I'm going to say Chiefs. It'll probably end up being Tampa Bay.
which is why I'm
Um,
picking Tampa Bay, because I have no real horse in this race, because I was rooting for the football team so we could say that this was the Super Bowl with the football team in it. And we were all
uh,
denied, and Tom Brady, even though Brady denied that chance, I still like giving the old guys one last run. I
yeah.
always like those
Well, he
stories.
doesn't want this to be his last run.
Or one of the last runs.
Yeah.
We'll put it that
Yeah.
way, because
The,
they
the,
could.
the only thing I'm skeptic about is possibly the Chiefs' defense, and I mean the Buccaneers' defense could be too.
Yeah,
Um, Father time with Tom Brady, you never know when that's gonna hit. Um,
yeah, we're in uncharted territory for a quarterback, or
yeah,
really any football player, really.
yeah. Um, Not everyone can be Jamie Moyer.
No,
But so the Matt Stafford trade, oof, that shakes up a lot of things, um, because for I know Goff had a big contract, and I guess as compensation, they sent a lot of those first round picks for that. But that makes trading for Deshaun Watson that much more expensive. I think
yeah, because
they're
now,
gonna want at least two first round picks, two second round picks, and possibly two young defensive players. Do the Jets have that? Yes.
do they
Do
want
I
to give that
do I
up?
want to give them all of that? No.
And
Um,
also remember, it's not just because of what the trade value is, because that takes Stafford off the board, and then
yep.
with it coming out that Aaron Rodgers is off the market, that that's two quarterbacks that could be traded that are not being traded. Remember, the demand is
Mm-hmm.
bigger than the supply with the Colts and the Colts, the Jets, the Saints, among many.
Patriots are probably going to
Oh
be
yeah,
the team looking.
yeah, with Cam Newton most likely
That
being
was actually one of the. That was the only team Stafford told the Lions. He's like, "Don't send me to the Patriots." So I guess he didn't want to end up with old Bill.
yeah.
Um,
But yeah, at least four teams that are super motivated. And remember that when this first came out, I think it was said that maybe five teams in the entire league would rather not uh, uh, have Marshawn over who they currently have.
yeah.
And that's probably we can. The two of those are in the Super Bowl. The third is Green Bay, and who would be the other two? I don't know, but that's not the point of this thing.
Yeah.
Point is, demand is a lot bigger than supply, and the supply got very thin all of a sudden.
Yeah. And it looks like the Steelers are going to keep Big Ben for next year, but they got to do something about his contract because they don't really want to be on the hook for $40 million.
Well, I
It's
think
going to really
we're into
cash
the
strap him.
Yeah. No, wait, no, it was the they're, oh yeah, that I was saying that speaking of cash draft, that probably takes the Saints out of it too because I think they're what 98 million over for this coming
Mm.
season.
Well, Drew Brees is supposedly retiring, so that should give them a bit of
Yeah, but
cap space
yeah,
as
but
well.
98 million is still a lot.
Yeah,
They gotta
no,
get under. So
yeah,
I don't think they're gonna be able. They're going to be in
yeah,
the
because
running.
Watson's got a massive contract.
No,
Um,
they'll probably be in the running for the quarterback of the team
yeah, but
that gets him.
what's important about the Jets though is I believe they have a lot of that cap room though, and as now if you're gonna trade for Watson, you have to give up that number two pick. I don't think Texans are gonna say no to that
You might have to
because
give up the number.
Miami's got some like low picks as well that they can go if they're not too keen on Tua. Which Tua's like I gotta prove I'm the franchise quarterback because clearly he was not the franchise quarterback with having Fitzmagic uh, bailing him out as the closer, a la baseball.
Except
Um,
for the couple times that it Fitzmagic turned into Fitzception.
yep. Um, So that's going to be interesting. But the Jets have to hold on to, I think it's the 23rd pick in the first round that they have. I think they need to keep that for this year. I think that's important to have. Um, but if the Jets do trade for Watson, they need to find him a true number one wide receiver.
Mm.
Because what they have now is garbage. It's awful. They need to build more on that offensive line and keep the pressure up with the defense and keep the offense out there long enough so the defense doesn't get tired and blow games.
Mm.
Um, so that's my sort of 2 cents and whatnot more on that. But yeah, I think this will be an interesting Super Bowl. Um,
The superb owl.
am I gonna watch it? I don't want to watch Brady win a seventh Super Bowl.
There's
But
no Coca-Cola commercial on that end.
yeah, yeah, yeah. There's not a lot of big commercials. I think we talked about that last time. They were donating the money instead,
Yeah.
or these high-profile companies. Um,
We'll
but
see.
yeah, so that's that. I
Uh,
guess we'll have a Super Bowl winner next time, unless if COVID cancels that, which a couple of players actually have tested positive or had been in close contact. So uh, they might make it as long as they test negative for 5 straight days. Um, we'll see if any other craziness comes up in a matter of the next week. But
one last thing to note on the Super Bowl. To those curious, that Tampa Bay is allowed to have 22,000 fans in attendance for the Super Bowl, so about
mm-hmm.
a third of their capacity, or otherwise known as still more than the Tampa Bay Rays.
Yeah.
But
Um,
that's it for this week. One last thing that coming up, we talked about Nolan Arenado at the top of the show. It's come out that it'll likely take at least another day, but no one on either side is expecting there to be a hang-up. So if all goes well, it looks like Arenado will be trading that weird dinosaur mascot that Colorado has for the Cardinals.
yep. And Chipper Jones is going to be a hitting consultant for the Braves, so we'll get to see him on the field again.
Hey,
All right. Once again, a pleasure, Mr. Voldemort.
as always, hopefully we won't be buried alive with all the snow.
No, hopefully not. Hopefully not.
And we'll talk to each other next week. See you guys then.
All right. See ya.